Hello and welcome to the Noahide court in Jerusalem. I'm your host Betzalel Edwards, and we're reading from the book You Are My Witnesses by Rabbi Yoel Shwartz. He is the world expert in Noahidism, and we're going to explore some significant dates in the Noahide movement. One of them is the year 5750. The year 5750 was the year 1990 in the Gregorian calendar, and there was that year saw a great congress in Texas where hundreds of people came and they said, "We are Noahides." And they invited a few holy and well-educated rabbis from Israel, from the Holy Land, who explained some of the principles of the Noahide laws, which the Noahides were yearning to live their lives and model their faiths after. The year 5750, according to the Arizal, the great Kabbalists in Tzfat, who lived many years ago, actually has a significant date. It's in the book Beit Achilayi. He writes that the year 5750, and from that time there's going to be a great light coming into the world. In that, specifically it says, from that year the power of evil is going down, getting weaker, and the godly lights will shine with greater strength. This conference happened in the month of Iyar, not long after the outbreak of the first Gulf War over Kuwait. Now, it's interesting to note the words of the Holy Zohar regarding this. Bear in mind that Kuwait is in a place, what started the war? Saddam Hussein said Kuwait is part of Iraq. It's the 19th province of Basra. Basra is the southernmost province of Iraq in the three large provinces of that state. And he went to claim what he considered was his, and the Kuwaitis and the Americans and the Allied forces said no. So let's look at what happens in the year 5750 according to the prophecy of the Zohar and the Arizal. In the future, it is written in the Zohar, Parshat Vayera, it says, in the future, the children of Ishmael will wake up a war, will start a great war in the world. And then then God is going to visit himself, waking up upon them. This is as it is written, for there shall be a great slaughter in Basra. At that time, of this time it is written, the Zohar continues quoting the prophet Malachi, the last of the 12 prophets. And Malachi is, for you viewers out there, incidentally, the last of all of the prophets. And he said, I know, and that on that day I will turn the whole world into speaking one tongue. The whole world will speak one tongue, and they will all call in the name of God, and they will all serve God together. And it is written, and on that day his name will be one, and he will be one, and his name will be one. So we learn from all of this, Rabbi Shwartz writes, that these events surrounding Basra and the first Gulf War, they show how the world is yearning towards truth, where everybody is afraid of radical Islam. Most of the world does not want to live under radical or extremist Islam. I'm including many, if not most, of the Muslims in that estimation. And these events are showing that people want to get closer in their search for the truth. The second event in the Noahide calendar could be considered 2 years later, Tafshin Nun Bet, 1992, when there was a large group of pilgrims, Noahide pilgrims. They all came to Jerusalem, and they all said, we want to meet with the great and holy rabbis of Israel in order to learn the ways of Noahidism. It's very interesting that in that year, 5752, 752 is the exact numerical equivalent of the phrase V'haya ba'achrit hayamim, and it shall be in the end of days, in the second chapter of Isaiah. In those days, in that very year when the pilgrims, the Noahide pilgrims, came to learn from the rabbis what was going on in Madrid, the peace talks in Madrid, the peace talks that managed to radically reduce the nuclear arsenals of the United States and Russia and other countries in Europe. So let's look at the full text in Isaiah. And it shall be in the end of days that God's house will be established in the mountains, etc. And all of the nations will come to the house of the God of Jacob. It says to the house of the God of Jacob, and they will learn from their ways, and they will go in their paths. For from Zion shall come forth Torah and the word of God from Jerusalem. And God will judge between the nations, and he will reprove many nations, and they shall beat their swords into plowshares, and beat their plowshares into pruning hooks. One nation will not raise its sword against another nation. They shall learn war no more. This whole prophecy started off with the words, and it shall be in the end of days, Vayeh b'achriti yamim, the numerical equivalent of 752, and the Madrid peace talks that managed to actually fulfill this prophecy happened in the year 5752. It is also possible, Rabbi Schwartz writes, that humanity was not yet ready to hear the message of the Jews. Yes, Christianity and Islam managed to bring the world away from idolatry and closer to the monotheistic faith, but they did not finish the job. Let's turn to a quote from Professor Arnold Toynbee, who it may be said that he did not excel in his love of the Jews, but let's turn to a very significant quote of one of the greatest historians of all times. And he said, "I will have the audacity to say that in the future, Judaism will bring a great message to the world." And how strange it is that until today, that they have not been able to bring their own message. He says that 2 times in the history of humanity, we have seen that the message of the Jews was actually brought by foreign peoples and foreign cultures. My intention is Christianity and Islam. This is a mockery, he said. That foreigners would have to come and spread the message of a certain people. Why can't they explain it themselves, he asks. Clearly now, Professor Toynbee writes, that the Christians and the Muslims have a master plan for their religions to spread throughout the whole world, which is not so for the Jews, who largely keep their religion to themselves. Is not Jewry destined in the future to spread their teachings of their Torah in their own expression, in their own way, in their own original version? A Jewish Judaism as opposed to a Christian or Muslim Judaism, which is much of what Christianity and Islam has to offer, is basically a Muslim form of Judaism or a Christian form of Judaism? Is it possible to say that in the entire world that this message would be spread not in a Christian or a Muslim garment? After all, the belief in one God is purer among the Jews than it is among the Muslims and the Christians. Is this not the gift of the Jews to the world? Is this not the gift that they are destined to give to the world? Is it not hidden here the solution to what some call the Jewish problem of anti-Semitism and the difference between Jews and other nations in all of the diaspora? Clearly, Professor Toynbee has a very valid point, and it's about time that we proffer a Jewish Judaism, not a Judaism, but let's call it, a non-Jew is not obligated to fulfill the Torah of the Jews. Somebody who is not Jewish has to fulfill a universal law in a universal way. And that is called the Abrahamic faith, and that is based on the 7 laws of Noah. To bring a great light to the world from the Sanhedrin and the Noahide court in Jerusalem, I'm your host, Betzalel Edwards. Shalom uvracha, peace and blessings.